Dreadlocks, which we now call locks, have existed for thousands of years. Locks have been worn by multiple cultures and nations around the world for various reasons. In this video, we're going to dive into the origins of dreadlocks. Does this hairstyle belong to one specific group of people? Firstly, let's talk about the word dreadlocks and how it came about. There are several points of view. Some believe that it was a derogative term created by the British, referring to the hairstyle worn by Kenyan warriors, specifically the men of the Maasai tribe during the late 19th century colonial battles as they fought against the British to keep their fertile grazing land. The Maasai fought back for about 10 years before their defeat, which led to a treaty agreement in 1904. It is said that their hairstyle's purpose was to instill fear or dread into their enemies. Another point of view is that the British referred to the matted locks of the African slaves who arrived on American shores as dreadful. Third take is that Rastafarians brought about the term of dreadlocks as an act of defiance against the negative connotation. Instead, the word was used to describe a reverence to or respected fear, as you would fear a god. Some people connect this idea to the Rasta's fear of Jah. Rastafarians believe that they shouldn't cut their beards or use combs on their hair. As we know, with type 4 hair, locks will quickly form without the use of a comb. I think it's safe to say that the reason so many African Americans wear locks now is due to its origins in Africa. So now that we've talked about the origin of the word, let's get back to the origins of the actual hairstyle. Historians have seen locks all around the world and at various points in history. This style dates all the way back to 1500 BC in ancient Hindu texts called Vedas. In these texts, Lord Shiva wears his hair in jata, meaning locks of matted hair. Nowadays, we still see this hairstyle in India. The holy men of India, called sadhus, wear their long locks piled on top of their head. In ancient Greece, there is a fresco of young boxers wearing what appears to be locks. This was in 1500 to 1600 BC. In 1885, a chief named Poundmaker of the Cree First Nation is pictured wearing long locks. In Egypt, mummies were discovered with their locks still intact, dating locks back to ancient Egypt. Now, in terms of Vikings or Norse people, it is unclear if one of the styles they wore was locks, as there is no written or physical record of their appearance. Other cultures have commented on their appearance, describing them as ropes, but this could be referring to braids or twists. There is physical evidence, though, of the use of combs amongst the Viking people, so that might remove the possibility of locks, since combs are not needed for locks. But again, there isn't enough evidence to completely deny or confirm it. Now let's move on to how locks became so widespread. Can you guess? That's right, Bob Marley. Let's go off on a small tangent, shall we? So, you just heard the lyrics Buffalo Soldier, Dreadlock Rasta. Buffalo Soldier refers to the black soldiers who maintained border security with Mexico, fought in the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, as well as against indigenous tribes in America. The black soldiers were actually called Buffalo Soldiers by the indigenous tribes due to their dark coiled hair and fierce nature of fighting. At first, this nickname only referred to the 10th Cavalry, but the name caught on, and soon all of the black soldiers fighting in 1866 were called the Buffalo Soldiers. There was even an embroidered insignia shoulder patch of a buffalo made for these soldiers. Isn't it interesting how so many names emerge and are associated with a group of people simply because of their hair? The Rastafari movement, which was both religious and political, began in the 1930s. Rastafaris believed that the last Ethiopian emperor, Haile Selassie I, was the second coming of Christ, who returned to redeem all black people. Haile Selassie was born Rastafari Makanen, hence the name and creation of the Rastafari movement. Rastafaris focus on certain passages of Leviticus, which talks about not cutting and trimming your hair and beard. Rastas also believe that their locks hold power and energy, in reference to the story of Samson in the Bible. Many of the people who converted to and embraced the ideologies of Rastafarianism were inspired and empowered by the Mau Mau uprising. This happened in Kenya during the 1950s. Dreadlocks became a style worn by many of the members of the Mau Mau as a symbol of defiance and strength, as well as a result of their lifestyle. They were in the forest, planning attacks, and always on the move. Their hair became locked as a result of the way they were living, but they embraced this style and associated it with what they were fighting for. This is Dedan Kimathi, a fierce leader of the Mau Mau uprising. Britain invaded Eastern Africa in multiple stages towards the end of the 19th century, conquering many groups of people and destroying years and years of traditions. British settlers who went to Kenya began settling in the fertile lands, pushing out the indigenous farmers and herders. Thousands of Kenyans, specifically those from the ethnic group Kikuyu, were pushed into reserves. Doesn't this sound familiar? Among this group, a resistance rose up, which became a group called the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau led attacks on the British and those loyal to the British, and soon they were forced to go into the forest to regroup, plan their next move, and basically stay alive. By 1956, the British captured and hanged one of the most prominent Mau Mau leaders, Dedan Kimathi. Today, a statue of Kimathi sits in central Nairobi, and he is known as a freedom fighter and an icon who pushed Kenya toward its eventual independence. This idea of liberation and freedom sparked an interest in a very specific group of the Jamaican people, the Rastas. It is important to note that Rastas don't view their hair as only a hairstyle. Their hair is part of their lifestyle and holds deeper spiritual meaning. Another interesting fact is that just like the sadhus of India, Rastas smoke ganja, or weed, to induce a meditative state, thus bringing them closer to Jah and their spirituality. Nowadays, locks are worn by millions of people, especially in the US. Basically every rapper or hip-hop artist has traditional locks or freeform. There are some famous artists like The Weeknd who used to wear freeform locks. There's Jay-Z who currently has freeform locks. Halle Bailey has traditional locks and recently gained a lot of attention due to her role in the live-action Little Mermaid. Sister locks and microlocks have also gained a lot of popularity over the years, and we can see so many examples of beautiful locks all over social media. Have you seen this actress before? Her name is Judith Scott, and most recently she's been in the TV series Snowfall. And of course we have Lauryn Hill and so many others. To this day, especially in the US, there is still a negative attitude surrounding locks in professional and school settings. Isn't it crazy that we're still facing stereotypes and criticism simply because of a hairstyle? On the flip side, we also see positive examples of locks on YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok, as well as more representation in mainstream media. But it is an uphill battle. If you don't have locks, what is your impression of this hairstyle? And if you do have locks, how do they make you feel? Do you find the term dreadlocks to be offensive, or does it not bother you? Considering everything that you've learned in this video, has your mind changed about the meaning behind dreadlocks? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.